Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Back in November of 2015, I made a video on my top 10 favorite Pokemon. But after the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon in November, bringing the total number of Pokemon over 800, I feel that it is worth revisiting the list. Luckily for me, I was able to get a little bit of help coming up with this list. To create this list, I consulted the Favorite Pokemon Picker website, a link to which is in the description down below if you're interested in checking it out. And I highly recommend it if you are interested in making your own favorite Pokemon list. Just keep in mind that this list is my list, and therefore these are my opinions on my favorite Pokemon. Just because you don't see your favorite Pokemon on the list doesn't mean I don't like it, it's just not one of my 10 favorites. If you want to share your list, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started this list with number 10. Coming in at number 10 on my list is the greatest of the Hoenn dragons, Flygon. Now, Flygon holds a special place in my heart, because when I first got into the Pokemon anime, I remember seeing Flygon for the first time and immediately falling in love with it. I always loved the color green and dragons as a kid, so when I saw a literal massive green dragon that also looked like a dragonfly, my mind was blown away. It has one of my favorite designs of all Pokemon, and its ground dragon typing is one of my favorites as well. Its access to Stab Earthquake and Dragon Claw, and the gaining of Dragon Dance in Sun and Moon make this Pokemon a formidable opponent in the competitive battling scene as well. Above all, however, Flygon will always remind me of my younger days, and of the place where my own Pokemon journey began. I look back fondly on those days, and Flygon is always there, in the center of my memories. Number 9. Taking the number 9 slot on the list is the Fairy Queen of Hoenn, Gardevoir. A newcomer to the list, Gardevoir has become a personal favorite Pokemon of mine over the past year or so. Gardevoir is one of my favorite Pokemon to use competitively, especially Mega Gardevoir, and I really like its design as well. When I was younger, I always thought it was too girly for me to like it, but I've come to appreciate its design as I've gotten older, and I think it's pretty awesome. Plus, with the addition of the Fairy type back in Generation 6, Gardevoir became an awesome Pokemon to use in the competitive scene. As much as I like Gardevoir, though, I've never actually used it in a playthrough. The next time I'm playing through Hoenn, I'll be sure to have one of these on my team. Number 8. In the number 8 slot is the electric sheep thing itself, Ampharos. Ampharos is never the most memorable Pokemon to me, and the first time that I ever played through Johto, I didn't even consider using it on my team. However, in my most recent playthrough of Johto, I picked up a Mareep after going through Olivine City just because I wanted to complete the Pokedex. But as I sat there and looked at my team, I realized that Ampharos was actually a really good fit for it. And from there, I fell in love with Ampharos. My love for Ampharos grew even more after I used it in Season 2 and 3 of the RBL, and it was actually a super solid Pokemon to my surprise both seasons. One of my best battles in my RBL career wouldn't have never happened had Ampharos not been there. It is an awesome Pokemon, and will definitely be a staple on my team on every Johto playthrough that I do now. Number 7. Number 7 on this list is the cool Pokemon that packs a mean punch, Weavile. My love for Pokemon really developed after my first time playing through Pokemon Pearl, and so many of the Pokemon from the 4th generation stand out to me because of that. One of those is Weavile, whose awesome design and incredible usage in the competitive scene made me really fall in love with it. I've used it in 2 different seasons of the RBL and on many different OU teams, and its dark ice typing makes it a really hard-hitting threat. Its high speed and attack stats make it a threat to the many dragon and ground types that dominate the OU meta, and its access to Stab Knockoff and Ice Shard make neutralizing big threats a job that comes pretty easily for Weavile. I could go on for hours about why I think Weavile is easily one of the best ice types in all of Pokemon, but needless to say, Weavile is a large reason why I have come to actually really love the ice type. Overall, I think Weavile is just an awesome Pokemon. For that reason, it comes in at number 7 on this list. Number 6. The number 6 spot on this list goes to another Pokemon from Sinnoh. This time, it's the pseudo-legendary Pokemon, Garchomp. Something that you guys may not know is that Dragon is my favorite Pokemon typing, and Garchomp takes the cake as my favorite Dragon-type Pokemon. His Its shark-like design, intimidating color scheme, and incredible base stats make him a Pokemon that I would hate to see on the other end of a battle. Garchomp also stands out to me because it is the ace of Cynthia, who is my favorite champion, and beating Cynthia was a moment of great achievement for me when I first played through Pokemon Pearl. Beating Garchomp felt like the culmination of my time as a Pokemon trainer. I'll never forget that feeling. Besides my memories of Garchomp from playing the 4th generation, however, I also really enjoy using Garchomp competitively, and tend to use it on many of my OU teams. Stab, Dragon Claw, and Earthquake, paired with its high defense, HP, and the ability Rough Skin, make this Pokemon a huge threat in the current meta. It is a Pokemon that I have really come to love over the past few years, and for that reason, it is at the number 6 spot on this list. Number 5. Coming in at number 5 is the first and only Pokemon to represent the 7th generation on this list, and that honor belongs to Tapu Koko. Something about Tapu Koko's design, typing, and all-around role in the Pokemon universe makes me love it. When Tapu Koko was first shown off, I found it to be such an impressive and unique Pokemon. Its name stood out from all the other Pokemon that had been announced before it. Its design, as if it were part of a totem pole, was an interesting thing to see, and the Tapus have an incredible theme song to go along with it. After getting to use it in RBL Season 6, I've come to understand Tapu Koko better as a Pokemon, and I really enjoy using it competitively. Fairy and Electric are two types that I like very much, and seeing them combined in a Pokemon that doesn't look like most of the Fairy types is a really great sign for the type going forward. I think Tapu Koko shows that there's still a lot of promise for Pokemon going forward. And I hope that we continue to get Pokemon that are just as cool as Tapu Koko in the future. Number 4. Taking the number 4 slot on this list is the other evolution of Kirlia, Gallade. Simply put, I love Gallade. Its typing is awesome, its design is awesome, its Mega Evolution is awesome too. As another representative from the Generation 4 games, Gallade has become a staple on any playthrough of Generation 4 or Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I think Gallade is just an awesome Pokemon all around, and it's also a Pokemon that I enjoy using competitively. Gallade has an incredibly diverse move pool, with access to stab close combats and headbutt and Psycho Cut, as well as access to the elemental punches, Night Slash, Knockoff, and Leaf Blade, to name a few. It has the stats to be run in a variety of different ways, and its Mega Evolution can really pack a punch as well. Gallade is an all-around awesome Pokemon, and there's nothing that I wish to change about it. For that reason, it is well deserving of the number 4 spot on this list. Number 3. In the number 3 slot for this list is the original legendary Pokemon, Mew. Since my first ever Pokemon game was Leaf Green, I knew that Mew was an incredibly rare Pokemon. So rare, in fact, that unless you did an event, it was unobtainable in any way in those games. For that reason, Mew stood out to me as basically the god of the Pokemon universe. Before Arceus came into play, of course. For that reason, Mew has always been one of my favorite Pokemon. I also really love the Psychic type, and as a kid I thought it was a type that was designed to be better than almost every other type. Mew and Mewtwo always stood out in my mind as the strongest Pokemon in the games, so that must mean Psychic is the strongest type. Now I know that that's not the case, but that still doesn't diminish Mew in my eyes. Mew is an incredible Pokemon to use competitively, with an outrageously diverse move pool and base 100 stats across the board. It can be used in any role, and it can do that role really well. I love Mew's cute design, and it's one of the few pink Pokemon that I actually really like. In all, Mew is an incredible Pokemon, and its spot on this list serves as a reminder of all that Mew represents to me. Number 2. The number 2 slot goes to the Fire Mouse Pokemon himself, Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil is my favorite starter for my favorite Pokemon games, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But my love for it actually developed before those games came out. As a kid, many Pokemon toys managed to make their way into my house, one of which was a small Cyndaquil. I remember seeing the Cyndaquil for the first time and absolutely loving it. It was such an adorable little Pokemon, and when I saw what it eventually evolved into, I was speechless. I love the entirety of the Cyndaquil line equally, and saying that any one of them is better than the others is impossible for me, but I put Cyndaquil in the spot just because it's the beginning of the evolutionary line. As my starter for my favorite Pokemon game, I have many fond memories of playing through the Johto region, and the Kanto region, and fighting the gyms, and the Pokemon League, and Red, all with my trusty Cyndaquil at my side. And I will cherish those memories of Cyndaquil forever. Seeing it walk behind me and evolve over time is a wonderful metaphor for what a Pokemon journey is. For that reason, Cyndaquil takes the number 2 slot on the list. Before we get into number 1 on this list, I wanted to mention some honorable mentions. Picking 10 favorites is a really hard task, so I wanted to recognize some of the Pokemon that I also love, but they didn't quite make the list. First off is Sceptile. The Treecko line was represented on my last version of the top 10 list, but they just missed the cut this time around. Sceptile is easily my favorite starter from Hoenn because of its incredible design and personality from the Pokemon anime, but it was just edged out by a couple other Pokemon, and that's why I didn't make the list. Next is Ninjask. Ninjask is by far my favorite bug-type Pokemon. It's got great stats. I love its design. It has access to Speed Boost, which I think is awesome. It's such an underappreciated Pokemon, in my opinion, and I really hope that more people begin to recognize how awesome it is in the future. Next is Zoroark, who was actually a member of the honorable mentions in my last top 10 favorite Pokemon video, but I still feel that it was necessary to show it love. Zoroark's design is one of my favorites. It has an insanely unique ability, and it is one of the reasons why I really love Dark types, and also Unova. Not enough can be said about how cool it is. Next is Greninja, who is another starter that just missed out on the list. Greninja is a Pokemon that I look very fondly upon. It's one of the few starter Pokemon that I can definitively say I like better than the rest of its evolutionary line, which in this case are also great Pokemon in Frogadier and Froakie, but it's just pure awesome. It has access to 2 awesome abilities in Battlebond and Protean, but it's also recently begun to suffer from Charizard syndrome, being that it's become super popular and it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster, but it is still a very awesome Pokemon. And lastly, I wanted to mention Decidueye. From the moment that Rowlet was announced, I knew that this would be my starter for my playthrough of Alola, and I love the idea of a Ghost and Grass type Owl Archer. It's very unique, and the way that they pulled it off was really cool. Plus, Sinister Arrow Raid is an awesome thing. I haven't gotten to spend enough time using Decidueye to fully figure it out, but it is still an awesome Pokemon. Therefore, why it's in honorable mentions. Number 1. Finally, taking the title as my all-time favorite Pokemon is none other than the Otter King himself, Oshawott. Oshawott is a Pokemon that I fell in love with instantly. I've always found otters to be adorable animals, and when they announced that there would be a starter that was an otter, I was ecstatic. In the same way as Cyndaquil, I love all of Oshawott's line equally, but because he is the first in the line, and I fell in love with him first, he is the holder of the number 1 spot. Samurott gets a lot of hate from the Pokemon community, and I do understand why they say what they do, but I still think it's such an awesome Pokemon, and don't even get me started on Dewott, too. I remember following all of the news for Black and White before it came out, and that was the time when I felt that my love for Pokemon was stronger than ever. Every day I would go into Cerebi to see if anything new had come in from Korokoro or any other kind of leaks. And playing through Pokemon White with my trusty Oshawott at my side was an amazing experience for me. And I always think highly of that playthrough. I still have my original Samurott, and it is currently enjoying the Alolan Sun alongside many other Pokemon that I have had throughout the years. I will always have a special place in my heart for Oshawott, no matter how many Pokemon we get in the years to come. Thank you for watching this video. I spent a lot of time on this one, so your support is greatly appreciated. If you're interested in watching my last top 10 favorite Pokemon video, please click the link in the description. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's a link to the favorite Pokemon Picker website as well. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel for more Pokemon content in the future. Please like the video and comment with anything you guys think would help to improve the channel. With that, I'll be signing off. See you all next time. Have a great rest of your day.